is Dr. Janet Kabeberi Macharia. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing you wrong, from Kenya. And she's the head of the Gender and Social Safeguards Unit and also the senior gender advisor in UN Environment. And today she will talk about the topic of empowerment. And so please welcome Dr. Kabeberi Macharia.
Okay, thank you very much, Annika. You pronounced my name quite well. Many thanks to Hatian and Mattia for this kind invitation, and also for being very patient with me. In addition to being an employee certainly of UNEP, I'm also a Rotarian, and I'm the District Programs Committee Chair for District 9212, covering Kenya, Ethiopia, Eritrea, and South Sudan. So I'm so happy to be amongst fellow Rotarians. Now, my presentation today is going to focus on, I tweaked my title to focus on gender, climate, and security. And I'll be talking, presenting from our programs in gender and climate security within UNEP. And I'll also bring some insights in terms of what Rotary can do. So next slide, Kim, please. Thank you. Now, the overview of the presentation, which I'll do my best to make it very short, I'll just give a few pointers towards achieving a peaceful society, bring the different insights into gender, climate, and security, gender vulnerabilities, migration and displacement, and entry points for integrative action, and a call of action, and certainly looking at the 2030 agenda for sustainable development, which is actually interlinked to some of the presentations that have been made. Starting off with the next slide, please. And this is just to give you how gender and climate security are interlinked with 3 of the goals of SDGs. I'm not going to go into the detail, but just to show you how these interplays within the SDG framework. Next slide. Now, when we're talking about achieving a peaceful society, we are saying that by letting diversity, equity, and inclusiveness absorb our lives, we can establish climate adaptation measurements to limit disasters. I mean, we've now seen disasters happening literally like every day. So we have to look into how do we bring in issues of diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. And also we can prevent conflicts and refugees and establish peace, and we can establish the right balance between people, planet, and profit. And certainly our peace ambassador, Malala, constantly is talking about this. Next slide, please. So how are gender and climate change and security linked? There are many, many links. This is not all. When we look at droughts, you see how droughts affects the household. Who are the majority of the households are women and children. And you see how this is affects them on a daily basis. Yes, 2 days ago, our government in Kenya declared an emergency because of the ongoing drought, and we have 2 million people at risk. And this is in a country where you think that we should have actually managed to deal with this kind of challenges, but no, we have drought. Again, sea level rise, our oceans presenter today talked about it, and this affects the household, community, the state. Again, extreme weather events, warmer temperatures. We're experiencing warmer temperatures in Europe and in North America and other countries. So we see that this affects everybody at different entry points. So we have to look at ways in which we mitigate against the effects of these disasters. But at the bottom of that, you see that they continue to undermine women and men's ability to adapt, prevent, or recover from climate-related risks. Next slide, please. So what are we talking about when we talk about gender vulnerabilities? We see that climate-related security risks impact men, women, boys, and girls in different ways. So there's no one size fits all. And this results in distinct vulnerabilities for different groups. And because of that, this results in different adaptation measures or survival measures for that matter. And you see, that's why you see how communities actually even start to disintegrate because everybody's trying to survive. Now, responding to climate-related security risks may also offer new opportunities for involving women in peace building, conflict prevention, and climate change adaptation. And there are a lot of efforts, especially in Africa. And I will give a link to our program in climate, gender and climate security, which is actually run from our office in Geneva. So I'll give that link in the chat. So next slide, please. Again, this is just an example of also how men are also affected in terms of becoming vulnerable to the climate change, climate security. And this is actually a very sad picture. I just have to talk about it. It's from Haiti. The farmer with the last remaining wood, he had just chopped down one of the last trees in sight, explaining that the land here, it's just completely arid. I mean, those of you who know how Haiti looks, it's actually arid. They've chopped down all the trees. And of course, when disaster hits, the impact is greater than the neighboring islands. So again, the challenges include, we see the differentiated challenges in access, use, and control of natural resources, control of economic assets, next, please. Next slide. Hello. Okay, sorry. I'm having unstable connection. Yeah, thank you. The other is with respect to migration and displacement. Of course, we've seen what's been happening all over the world. The impacts of the current climate crisis, including rapid onset disasters like flooding and hurricanes, are expected to extremely change the patterns of human settlement. We've seen people moving across countries on foot, in cars, some dying in the boats in the oceans. And you can also link this also to the increasing changes in climate. So again, people are moving away from unfavorable environmental conditions that threaten traditional livelihoods or personal security. And this has a specific impact on women and children. I think the pictures we see are really, really worrying, and also the stories that we get to see. Next slide, please. So what are the entry points for integrated action? Oh, okay. When we talk about entry points for integrative action, one of the studies we've seen is that out of 17 out of 80 states who have signed in on women, peace and security, only 17 states mention climate change in their national action plans on women, peace and security. Again, that becomes a bit worrying because we have to look at how climate change and peace and security are interlinked, because this has a big story that we need to address. So we need to encourage our governments to sign in and have climate change integrated into their national action plans on women, peace and security. Next, please. So this is just a call of action for Rotary. We do have the Rotary Peace Fellowships. We do have the seventh area of focus, which is environment. I think we can start looking at how this can be interlinked. Certainly, we are a humanitarian organization, and peace is a cornerstone of our mission. Therefore, in all the efforts that we are doing, in all the work that we are doing when we're looking at climate change and also looking at peace, we should be aware of a number of things. Whatever we're developing, look at the gendered vulnerabilities. These are different. Like I said, no one size. Look at where the people you're addressing and who you want to assist are coming from. And then develop entry points to empower the most vulnerable. Include efforts to enhance diversity and inclusion. And Rotary International is quite big in terms of talking about diversity and inclusion. And then we create the much needed structural change towards a feminine culture of addressing peace and conflict. Constantly, when you look at peace building efforts and those who work on gender and peace, they say bring women to the peace building table or the conflict resolution table, because we have a way in which we are able to address all these challenges. And increasingly, these are being interrelated with climate change. Somebody's coming in. Okay, with climate change. So let us bring more that culture of how women are able to come at the negotiating table. And because of lack of time, like I said, I will link you up to the studies that we have done, which actually interlink all of these aspects. I think I'm going to last slide, please. Oh, this is, I love this picture. It shows how the youth are very, very active. This is young youth from Kenya who had a demonstration calling for change. and saying climate change is not what we want. We want to restore our climate to where it was before, to what it used to be. And they are really, really active. And again, part of the movement that Greta Thunberg has started. So we have very active youth, and we need to harness this group of people. I really enjoyed Bye Bye Plastic presentation. Let's go, let's do this. Let's get to support this generation. Next slide, please. Last word, my last word is from our the Secretary General Unit Executive Director, Inga Anderson. She says when we were launching our book report, rather, Making Peace with Nature, she says there is indeed no precedent for what we have to do. But if 2020 was a disaster, let 2021 then be the year humanity began making peace with nature and secured a fair, just, and sustainable future for everyone. Thank you very much. Over to you, Annika.
Again, thank you so much for this very empowering presentation. And I think I've seen so many people in the chat saying women are the future, and we need to. It's you're not falling on deaf ears in this environment here. So thank you so much for that.